Yes, sir. I do not. That would be a good idea. Would you pass one around for me, please? All right. So the first thing I want to kind of talk about is a little bit more of our customization within AutoCAD and the capabilities that we have to do that. The first one being something that I was asked to develop in terms of just a little customized toolbar. It was actually Jason that asked for this. What he was doing was he was going up to lines, create lines, and then line by bearing, line by angle. So in order to streamline that whole process, I was able to create a toolbar for him that will do it all here at the click of a button. So if there's anything like that that you guys need, please let me know. This is a lot quicker and a lot faster for tasks that he's doing, every single day. One click instead of, 4 or 5. It adds up and it makes your life a lot easier. So if there are any custom toolbars that you would like developed, let me know. These don't take very long to develop at all, and they're just a partial custom interface that we can load in on your individual machine. So your whole outlook and display is controlled by your customized user interface, CUI. And you guys probably shouldn't be playing around with this too much, but this is where it actually comes in. So I created a partial customization file for create line types, and then under it has this toolbar, and it has those 5 commands. So if you're curious about what those commands are, they always give you a tooltip underneath, and there's also a built-in inquiry tool as well. So that's kind of the first thing that I wanted to demonstrate. So keep that in your mind when you're working on things. If there's a way to save clicks, let me know. The second thing I wanted to share is this website. It's called Autodesk Exchange Applications. And what it is it's a bunch of software developers have put together extensions and application plugins for Civil 3D and for AutoCAD, Civil 3D, and all the related Autodesk software tools. So some of these are for free. You can download them for free and load them right in. There are also some that you have to pay for. There are a couple of really neat ones that are really going to streamline some of the things that you guys do here at NV5. So all you have to do to access this page is sign in, and everybody should actually set up an Autodesk account. So if you don't have one, you should sign up for one. I think you need one in order to download these. It's just a free account. So the one that I'm going to demonstrate today is called Batch-In Database. And how many people have used Script Pro in the past? Just a handful of people? All right, so this is kind of a replacement for Script Pro. The whole point of it is to automate a lot of tasks that you do. So the one that kind of got me thinking about this whole thing was the division between plan sets. A lot of times we'll have to create a plan set for the County of San Diego and a plan set for City of San Diego. So other than going through each file, unloading that XREF or reloading that XREF or freezing the layer, unfreezing the layer, and you could be having to do that in 18 sheets in your plan set. So this application can automate all that for you, and it will kind of just run once. It doesn't have to open each individual file. So on this right side here, over here is all the built-in batch commands that are available to you. You don't have to do anything except click them. So let's say we wanted to do it by an XREF. You can do it here. You can unload an XREF. So if you have a separate title block that's being XREF'd in, you could manage it that way. Or in our case that I was helping Rick Fry on, it was actually on a layer. So what we did was we just selected this layer property change. And so you select the command here. It brings up this dialog box. So let's say we have a layer called TB1, and we'll turn that, we'll freeze it. So we'll hit apply. Alright, so now it got added to our commands selected for the batch file. Then the next box here is your drawing list. So you select the drawings that you want to run it on. So this is the drawing that I'm going to run it on. It's just a simple dummy sheet. This here's title block 1, title block 2, just for just as a quick sample. So we want to add that file, if I can remember where I put it. Let me see where I actually put it, because this computer's not configured to everything. So there's the file that we just added. So what the trick here is, you got to right click on this guy here and say add commands to file. And what you see is it has this one command here. So then we'll go ahead and just run the batch file. So it'll take about 10 seconds or so, depending on how complex and how many commands you're telling it to run. It will kind of lock you out of being able to access this, but you know, it's pretty quick. So it processed, it ran. So we'll go back into this file that we had it run on, and as you can see, our title block 1 has been frozen. So the thing that's really cool about this is, I didn't save it, you can save all those settings. So once you have it set up, you know, let's say TB1, you can export this list as, you know, a command. Say, you know, this is title block 1 freeze. And you can also save and export your file list as well. So then you could export. Didn't have. No, it's currently in use. But you can save that as well. And obviously you could add an entire job folder if you wanted. You know, you could add 18 drawings here and apply all your different commands to those, and you can save this file list as well. So this obviously has a lot of power behind it, with all these built-in commands lists. The other one that's probably of particular use, I'm going to remove this one, and let me go to this guy and close this guy out.
Can you do multiple commands at the same time?
You can do multiple commands. So in this file, if I go to plot right now, it doesn't have any page setups, or model space it does. Doesn't have any page setups for plotting. So the way you would normally do it is you could import them from a file that you knew had good good plot settings, but you'd have to do that manually for every page in your plan set. So there's a faster way to do it using our batched in database. Page setup import. Go ahead and select that. Let's switch here. So we'll select that command. So the new template has predefined page setups, and what you'll notice here is that there's some setup for model as well as paper space. Currently, this batch-in database cannot do model page setups, but that doesn't really concern us too much because normally we're plotting our layout tabs anyway. So what we'll do is we'll select that guy, we'll apply that guy, and we'll apply that guy. And when we apply this one, let's set that one as current in our new drawing or in our other drawing that we're importing it in. So we've got our 3 commands. We'll add our file. Sorry, I have it open. Your file does have to be closed for it to be able to run. So just know that. So we'll select all 3 of those commands. We'll add them to the file. They show up here, 1, 2, 3. And then we'll run the batch as well. So it doesn't actually open the file, but it is kind of running it in the background. All right, so that ran. So if we open that file, and now if we go to plot, we'll notice that we have our page setups, and it's set the one that I told it to set current as the default for the layout. So this tool is very powerful, not so much when you're working on one file, but if you're working on an entire plan set, it can save you hours. You know, it's very scalable to whatever you're doing.
Okay, where do we find that tool?
So that tool, yeah, good question. So right now, where I have all that, you can actually go to the website and download it, or you can go to my folder, and under my main folder, I've got a folder called Autodesk Apps Exchange. And that one right there is called the CAD Manager Tools Batch-in Database. Now there is one little issue when you install it. It doesn't install totally correct. I don't quite know why, but you do have to, once it installs, you have to copy this over to that folder there. It needs to reside in that folder. I don't know why it's not installing there correctly, but that's kind of the workaround, is just to copy this into that folder, which is just your program data, Autodesk application plugins. I think you can actually just copy that folder into that and not have to worry about the install. Just make sure you have AutoCAD closed when you copy and install that. And what that does is it brings up this toolbar here. So that's on your file menu bar. So hopefully you guys have that displayed. It'll show up there, and it's just got this one command built into it. But you'll be able to see that there's quite a bit of uses for this. If you want to do annotation scales removal, fields, if you want to update all fields or attributes, there's certain blocks you want to insert into a drawing. There's a lot of commands here that we don't really have time to get into, but can definitely automate a lot of your tasks and just save you some busy drafting work. Any questions on this? See none. The one thing I will make a comment on with the page setup insert or import, it will not overwrite existing page setups. So just take that to note. And when you click on that command, what it does is it will take the setup of your current drawing, the drawing that you're in when you opened the database patch in. So the file that you open is the one that you want to export into other files. All right, moving along a little bit, just going to kind of walk through some quick AutoCAD functionality that will demonstrate some of the styles that have been developed in the template. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an alignment from a polyline. Right now all I have in this drawing is just a simple polyline to demonstrate an alignment. So we'll just call it test 1. So alignment style, nothing's really changed here too much. The one difference between the proposed centerline and the proposed centerline layout, on the layout you'll see the projection of your straight lines to the PI. Standard label sets, nothing too mind-blowing here. They're just all kind of named where they're easily identifiable what they'll do. Major and minor with geometry points, that's kind of the typical one. You'll notice that the default is to have these two options deselected, because usually you'll have a polyline that has your curve radius already in it. And whether or not you want to erase your existing entity, it's kind of a user preference. I typically always create it or keep my existing polyline. So there we go. There's our simple alignment. Then what we'll do is we'll go up to Profiles and we'll create just a simple profile view. We'll just call this test 1 as well. Profile style, these all got renamed to be more descriptive of what they actually are. What these are is it will show your grid, major and minor grids at this interval. So let's go 50 by 10 horizontal and 10 by 2 vertical. That's where the grids will come. They'll come at every 50 feet. That will be your majors on your horizontal axis, and 10 will be your minor. 10 and 2 will be that, your vertical, and an exaggeration of 5. Now, the one thing that I want to stress here is to never set things on automatic. There's a host of reasons, but once you start doing some things on your profile, you're going to end up using some dummy line work and dummy text. And if you later on make changes to your alignment and it's set to automatic, your profile may shift, and all that dummy line work is not going to shift with it. So make sure that you always use user specified. And as a good practice, I'd always give yourself, not that much, about 50 feet on either side of where you want to be. Basically, I'll just round up to 1300. Same thing with your profile elevations. You'll want to specify those as well. This is just a dummy profile, so we don't really have anything too fun to do there. You have a host of data band sets here that you can pick in. We'll cover those sometime later. I think you guys are pretty comfortable with data bands. So we'll just create a quick dummy profile. It will always take a second once you click to generate it. Shouldn't take this long, but all right. So the next thing we'll do is we'll just create a profile from layout. So you select your grid. Again here, we'll just call it test 1. Profile style, you'll notice there's some renaming going on here. We'll do a proposed roadway. Now your profile label sets, again, you kind of have the same matching name pattern as the profile style. So we're doing a proposed roadway. And we'll go over what those, what's all included in those. So we'll just draw a quick dummy profile here. Something like that. Something like that. Yeah, that should be pretty good. And what you'll notice is I didn't draw it with vertical curves. I always find it easier to just do something like that and then add my vertical curves in at a later date, which is now. Let's say a 50-foot vertical curve. Then we'll do the same thing here. Oops. And one more. Now what you'll notice is all those labels populated. So the thing that I wanted to demonstrate here is that label set. There's a couple things going on with it. So this vertical label set now is all built into one label. You don't have to worry about 20 different label callouts within that label. It will be a lot easier for you guys to manage. So this is what's going on. On our crest vertical curves, we've got a crest high point and our quarter deltas. On our sag, we've got the sag and our quarter deltas. So it's simplified considerably. Before, you guys used to have a K value, length of vertical curve, all those separate items were separate label types. So it's all simplified within the main sag and crest curve. So if we go in this and look at what it's all built out of, slow day for this computer. So it's got all this stuff built in. Your beginning vertical curve station and elevation, ends, and all your sag data. It's all built into that one style there. This particular style has a low point included where it's going to draw the marker. So we'll get out of that. Let's say you want to go over to this high point. And what you'll notice here is, well, this curve here, since it's not a true crest at your very top, doesn't necessarily have a high point that we want to use. There's no real high point to it. So what we can do, and one of the things that I'll always harp on you guys, is always have the properties window open and expanded, not hidden. Have it always in a place where you can see it. There's a reason why you guys have two monitors. The first monitor should be used for your drafting space. The second monitor should really contain your properties and tool space windows open. Your tool space will save you a lot of time, so you can access a lot of things here, such as what I'm about to do. So we'll control select this label, and what will happen is you can change the profile label style from that. So this is a vertical curve crest, and we basically say, hey, we don't want the high point because there's no real high point information on that. So we'll change that style, and what you'll notice is that the high point station and elevation went away. So basically those labels are very customizable within a click. One of the things that you notice is that your quarter deltas are off. They're not actually attached to the curve. There's a reason for that. The way that those are built is they're using an expression on your pipe or your profile labels. So those quarter deltas here, the one thing that you have to change anytime you open the drawing is the expression for your vertical scale exaggeration. Default, it's set to 10. Our profile view exaggeration was 5. So be sure to come back in, edit this value. When you do that and you regen, all those quarter deltas will come back up to where they're supposed to be. So those vertical curve label styles have been drastically simplified for you. I hope you all agree. All right. So just a couple comments on some things that I've seen in terms of your guys' workflow. One of the things that I think we should probably try to point towards is unification of some of our files. Right now you're in the practice of creating kind of two separate files, a PRTO and a PRTO-C3. Now what's the rationale behind that? Does anybody know where that originated from?
Perhaps file size?
Okay, file size? Was it just file size?
Display.
Display? Okay. Well, with display, hopefully now that you have styles that are available to you, you can manage your display a lot better. Previously, you may not have been able to freeze your surfaces, or things were always on a 0 layer where you couldn't freeze them. And so it really prevented you guys from being able to XREF that file. The problem is when you have two separate files, you've got two sets of data and two sets of things that you have to revise and continue to update and coordinate with one another. So hopefully we'll get to a place where our workflow can be directed into one file and you're using all the information and data dynamically in your modeling instead of having two separate files floating out there. One of the ways to do that is creating cropped surfaces. So typically the way that you guys are kind of building your grading files, you'll start with your corridor, and you'll extend your corridor up your slope face to catch a daylight. And the problem with that is the contours that are generated by that surface aren't necessarily good enough to display. They're kind of jagged, they don't really do the radiuses right. And so you explode that corridor and extract all those contours, and then you no longer use your corridor surface that you've spent all this time developing. So we're going to develop a workflow path that will eliminate that, where you'll continue to use your corridor surface throughout your design, and you won't really extract things from it. And the way we'll do that is we'll go and create a surface, and it'll be a cropped surface. I'm not going to go over it here now. This will be a kind of a future training thing. But what it does is it will actually limit the amount of data in your new surface. It will create a new surface and then crop it to just display the information that you want. So this becomes particularly critical for your roadways and access roads, because all that information you actually want built off of your corridor. You don't necessarily just want the contours extracted from it. You actually want to use that corridor surface. So you can take your master corridor and tell it, hey, let's limit it to just the roadway. And then you use that corridor surface in your ultimate surface generation. All right, so how many people have started using the new templates? Anyone? All right, for those that have started to use, what's kind of the feedback on them? Have you noticed big differences, any differences, no difference? What's kind of been your experience with them?
I like it because it puts everything on the layer.
Okay.
It puts everything on the layer instead of 0. Oh. I like the separate utility and exhibit and all styles, and the ones that allow you to, if I'm just doing simple line work for erosion control, I know I didn't send you my erosion control, but for erosion control, I don't need all the styles for surfaces and all that stuff. So the basic line work stuff, line 1, 2, 3, textile 1, 2, 3 is all nicely, I guess, consolidated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something important. As you guys start creating files, kind of keep me updated on, hey, I'm creating a file for, let's say, PRPN. There's not really a template. What should I use? Or, it would be very helpful if I had these layers in a set template that I could use for this purpose. The reason right now why we don't have, 20, the issue is that list is going to expand rather quickly. We're going to start having 20 or so templates. And as we start out, I want to keep that list manageable until you guys have had a chance to kind of sort through the templates and use them, and we have a chance to refine them. The more templates that there are, it's harder to manage and to distribute and update styles throughout all 20 drawings. So that's why right now you'll see like the proposed utility is still in with the proposed grading, because I didn't want to break those off because they use some of the similar styles or some of the same styles. So as soon as you guys start using those, the sooner we can refine it and the sooner we can separate them out to be more targeted to your actual file type. Any other comments on the template?
I'm going to ask this question, not knowing it. I'm not throwing anybody in my team under the bus. If some of the team were, if some of the files were originated with the template, but are alignment styles, are any of those on layer 0 or any part of those components on layer 0?
No.
Okay.
They may have been in the past. The template that you guys are currently hopefully using, it's not on 0. They're all specified to a layer. And there's been some issues in particular on alignment styles. Sometimes the marker would kind of come in and not be able to change color. Regardless of whatever you did, it would act like it's on 0 layer. So hopefully that's all been resolved with the way that these new styles have been developed. I like to get rid of using 0 layer as much as possible because when things are on 0 layer, it doesn't allow you to make any customization whatsoever. So you hopefully will not have any problems with that. Things coming in on 0 layer or within something being 0 layer. Anything else? Any other questions or comments?
In general, is the survey group, are you guys using point database? You guys use it? Is it standard practice for you guys? I mean, is it supposed to be the way you use?
I don't know. I mean, internally, I think there's some of us that are fans, and some of us that aren't. I know one of the big issues with the databases is setting up the projection and the datums correctly, and when those don't, because you have to set it up in 2 different places, and if they don't, your point starts shifting, by the international foot margin, which is somewhere around 12 to 13 feet. So you bring in points in one drawing, and then you bring them into the database, you bring them back into the database into a different drawing, and all of a sudden your points are about 12 or 13 feet off.
Because the default
is set to international feet. And then, so I think people have gotten used to setting up the settings in the drawing settings themselves to US survey feet. But part of the issue is with the survey database, the settings, the windows look completely different and nothing alike. So it's not, I don't know if people are catching on to that or using that correctly when they're setting up databases.
Is there a way to change that term so that it defaults to
US survey feet? I think we've asked.
We've
tried looking into that before, Jarrod.
Yeah, let me look at that. I don't think there is.
David the business did, and it would take reprogramming.
AutoCAD.
But I mean that's also just a training thing where we need to make everyone aware that got to change both of those. And one of the things that I've noticed that had me reluctant to use that database in the past was just the ability to select things and create groups and all that. But that's Jarrod. That's greatly improved in 2015 version. So
You can set up one and export the settings that you use in that drawing, put it on your desktop, and just grab it every time you need it. That's one step right there.
Yeah, let me look at that a little bit. I think you might be actually able to export it and overwrite the default settings. This button here will let you export the settings to a file, and then you can always import it as well.
but again, it's just
You'd still have to do it
yeah
for when you set up a database.
of getting everyone knowing exactly where that is. And
Correct.
And that may be something that we might want to put on one person. Like you're creating the file directory. Just have someone create that survey file or whatever and set it up, and so that we know who to blame if it isn't done right. Because that's what's important.
And I feel like most people have take the time to set their drawing settings to California Zone 6 or wherever you might be working in, instead of using the no data, no projection settings. I think that was the first step in trying to get everybody back on that page. So we've kind of graduated from that. Maybe editing the survey database is just like you said. It's just another step in the learning process.
Well, once we have the templates set up, once we're getting those done, that'll at least take care of the
Drawings.
drawing itself, and then that's something you don't have to think about, but then you still have to think about the database and just checking it. But I would encourage everyone to, in survey to keep an eye on each other, and in engineering to keep an eye on the surveyors, and just check those settings when you put a file in.
Yeah, anytime you have a file, so right now this is in the survey database. You're not really going to touch this unless you're involved in processing survey points. But you definitely want to have a coordinate zone and your distance set correctly. So be sure that every drawing that you're working in has those set correctly in all the templates. So if you're creating a new drawing from a template, that will already be set for you. But if you're using a file that wasn't used from the template, be sure that you have your coordinate system set. And also, when you set it, it will automatically switch to US feet when you change it to Zone 6. These settings is for the survey, so obviously we'll want US feet, and we'll specify a coordinate zone as well.
Jarrod,
Yes?
apparently for the database settings, even when you switch it to Zone 6,
It'll still keep in international feet.
Yeah, unlike the drawing settings will.
Yeah, in your drawing settings, you'll see that it's actually grayed out. Because the minute you change it to USA, California, Zone 6, it knows it's in survey feet. So as long as you're set here on your drawing settings, you don't have to worry about this. But the minute you see international feet, be scared.
Can you try it in the database?
Sure.
So are you guys supposed to be setting up those database?
It
You
depends.
guys set them up because you get all the points.
Well, it's per project. If it's it's not a master project, sometimes it doesn't warrant the use of a database. If the project's small enough, if it is,
It does gray out.
it does.
Yeah.
You can't send it.
It switches to US feet. The minute you specify your coordinate zone, it does switch to US feet, just like it does for the drawing. So that's good. So as long as you set your coordinate plane system, you're good.
So I would assume that if someone has a survey set up a database to the points, they would have set it correctly. But I can speak for everyone.
Trust but verify.
Yeah, I would always make it a practice to check.
I would say leave it in the file, make like an existing point file, that's where we load all our points and keep it in there. But then we start talking about database, we're using database, and it's like, well, no, we don't. We don't set it up, we don't get all the points for this field office or jumping. We just get a CSV and we bring our drawing.
Yeah.
But that's what you guys should be doing then, setting up your databases for everybody?
Well, no, because they don't work the same as they used to on desktop. Like, you can't link them to multiple drawings. You have to export your database and import it into the drawing. So you still have to do the same thing. It's like it's just not so survey friendly. Yeah.
Where do you store those then? If you create a database, is that like in a drawing?
It just resides within the drawing itself.
Drawing.
Well, no,
The database is not in a drawing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, in that project folder.
It'll be pulled out every time you open a new CAD session. It is related to the job number. So it
If you
automatically
open a drawing in that project folder, that database is attached to that survey. Tag. But it's not mandatory that we set this up in a database when we start getting the survey.
No. Your surveyor should actually be doing that. Yeah, so I mean, right now, I think that's an important workflow issue to kind of discuss. Is right now you're just using the CSV file from the surveyors. You're not even using the database. And that may be something that we want to discuss, offline a little bit with survey in terms of, well, when that information comes into the field, who necessarily processes it.
I know we've just been putting them in our points in the prospector and doing point groups and putting our EXTO, but now we started in the EXPT to try to keep them contained.
Yeah. Oh, that's something to think about. Maybe we'll discuss that a little bit later. Well, correct, and I always hate having duplicate information out there and having a separate database for several things. So your points should reside in one location, and right now that's being managed by your survey database. So by importing points locally into your drawing, you're kind of breaking that work path and workflow right now. So that's probably, I understand that that's exactly what you want. It gets your job done, but it's not necessarily the best way of doing it right now. So I'd like to see us probably develop the survey database and then in the office using the database instead of the CSV files.
Couldn't they do the same thing? Like if you guys are using just a point drive, you could still open that point drive and just set the database in that drive and have all your points and point groups. You set it up the same way, and then you can just extract that in. And, at least they're all still has to.
In the database. So one of the things that you will notice about the survey database, if I had run this on this computer, so that's the famous batch file that updates all the settings.
How often should we be running that batch?
I'll try to send out an email saying, hey, time to do your updates. I'm probably making changes at least once a week to something, whether or not it's the template, part builder, survey database. There's a lot of different settings that get updated. It's probably about time for everybody to run that. I've made a lot of changes to pipe networks in particular, but that's something that not everybody uses. So, it's kind of a little hit and miss on that. So you'll notice as I refresh these, it's reading the stuff that's been developed. So the first thing to kind of take note is you actually have things that are applicable to NV5. This is something that we want to coordinate a little bit more with the surveyors in terms of you use this stuff to string all your points together and automate the line work. So when the surveyors go out, they can actually tell it, hey, start a string here and start connecting these points that I'm topoing. And then when you process this line work, it'll actually draw the line connecting all those points for you. So there's still a little bit of coordination that needs to happen with the surveyors. We just changed the way. What's that? Doesn't work? Why not? Oh, well, yeah, the surveyors aren't using it.
You have to use the space. It doesn't read back. It won't draw through.
Really? All right.
It's kind of a recent development that
Yeah.
we discovered last week. Was it?
Yeah, this is all real recent stuff. We're trying to work out some of the bugs still. So we'll have to come up with a new delineator because space doesn't, it works, but not as well as we want. But anyway, just know that we're starting to build that functionality here to really utilize that stringing capability of your survey points. Moving forward a little bit.
Change the subject.
Yeah, go ahead.
Going back to the alignments and profiles there.
Mm-hmm.
You just do a real quick refresher on how these data shortcuts are being brought in and taken out. Like some are being erased and having to regenerate them again because they're not either being unloaded properly or they're just being deleted. Trying to delete them from the drawing. So you bring to this drawing, and how do you get rid of it without having to destroy your shortcuts?
All right. So right now, yeah, this is kind of packed a little funny since I'm not actually in a project and whatnot. So let's say you'll always get that error. We'll go ahead and save this. So right now I've got two different Civil 3D objects in my drawing. I've got my alignment and I've also got my profile. So let's say I want to publish the things that are within this drawing out to the project database. In Civil 3D, the biggest change between Civil 3D and Land Desktop is in Civil 3D, all your intelligent objects reside within your drawing. Land Desktop, everything was in a database. It wasn't actually in your drawing. It was in a database. So now everything's within your drawing, and it is solely in this drawing until I tell it, hey, push these out, make it available to the project. The way we do that is through the use of data shortcuts. So we're at that point. I'm happy with my alignment. I'm happy with my profile. And even if I'm not 100% happy with it, I still will probably want to publish it to let others start to use it. So be sure to save your drawing first, and then right-click and click Create Data Shortcuts. Save your drawing. And it'll bring up this tab here telling you everything that you've got within your current drawing. Nothing's checked because nothing's been published before. I'll want to publish everything in my drawing. So it's picking up my centerline alignment of test 1, and it's also picking up the profile of test 1. And then I'll hit OK. And then what you'll see is that I now have the test 1 as my centerline alignment. If you expand that even further, you'll see the profile, and you'll see the profile of test 1. Now test 1 was the finished grade surface. In reality, you'll want to start naming your things a lot better than what I just did. So, you know, maybe you'll just call this FS, or, you know, centerline FS. Now you'll notice here, we'll go to refresh this, and it doesn't update. So kind of a key here is to do your validate data shortcuts. When you click on that, it'll run. It'll take a little bit of a minute. And then it'll pop this up saying, hey, object name change. And it picks up, hey, it used to be this test 1, but oh wait, now its current name is CLFS. And you pretty much always want to click update the data shortcut. And what it will do is it will update for you. And now under that test 1, the profile is called centerline FS. So a lot of times, anytime you rename something or any object or file, it can create kind of a headache in terms of your data shortcuts. You need to be sure that when you do rename things or repath things, that you go here and validate your data shortcuts. The other typical thing that you'll see is something like this, where it says that symbol is a broken shortcut. That file no longer exists, or this object no longer resides in that file. So when you click Repair Data Shortcut, it'll go through that original source file and say, hey, it's really not in there. Where is this object now located? And then you would navigate to the file that you renamed, or wherever you moved that object, you need to repath it. So be aware of that when you rename your objects or repath something, that you need to fix it here as well. Don't leave it to somebody else to figure out, because they'll never be able to figure it out. So be sure to keep your data shortcuts active, alive, and well. Good question, Rick. Yeah, and be sure when you create your Civil 3D objects that you give them appropriate names where anybody navigating this knows exactly what it is and where it came from and its purpose in being there. Any other questions? So moving forward, one of the things that I think I'll do in the next couple weeks is do more of a training on pipe networks. A couple of you started really using pipe networks, and that's the one area that has been developed the most in terms of available content to you now as opposed to 3 months ago. There's some really powerful things in the pipe networks. So I'll be sending out an email for that to see what the interest is on that. Mostly we'll discuss storm drain and sewer pipe networks. So if you have any interest in that, be sure to respond to that, or if you just want to learn how to do pipe networks in general. So I'll do a training on that more than just a brown bag lunch. It'll be a training. Anything else? Comments, concerns? Everybody happy?
That's right.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jarrod.